Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's panel discussion on science journalism in the Middle East and Africa. How are we doing today and where are we going tomorrow? I'm absolutely delighted to see so many of you in the audience because I know you've traveled from across Africa and the Middle East to be here in Doha. We've gathered to share our experiences and to sharpen our skills of science reporting in our region. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and I'd like to thank the Qatar Foundation and also the World Federation of Science Journalists for making this possible. Now, I want to start tonight's discussion with a very scientific survey. Raise your hand if you've had your work interrupted or disrupted by all the problems with the internet over the past week. Raise your hand if you've had problems because of the internet. Okay, so I think this is proof positive of how connected the Middle East and Africa have become to the global knowledge economy. About 5 years ago, the United Nations, in their Arab Development Report, pointed out how far behind the Middle East had fallen in science and technology compared to other parts of the world. Africa, too, was not realizing its potential in this field. Since then, there have been substantial political commitment and investment in many parts of the Arab world, and increasingly in Africa, to try and bring these regions up to speed in science and technology. And in fact, Qatar is a very good example of that. Here we're in Weill Cornell Medical College, which is part of the Education City in Qatar, and this is part of Qatar's substantial and serious bid to join the world of 21st century science and technology. The question, though, for both Africa and the Middle East is this region doing enough to communicate science and technology to the public? And in particular, is science journalism keeping up? And if not, why not? To discuss these issues and others, I'm delighted to welcome our panelists. We have Gervais Mbarga, who is a professor of science communication at Yaoundé University II in Cameroon. We have Patrice Goldberg, who is a presenter and executive producer of science programs at RTBF, which is Belgium's state broadcaster. We have Zeynep Ghosn, who is the science editor of Asafir newspaper in Lebanon. We have Ahmed El-Sheikh, who is editor-in-chief of news at Al-Jazeera. And we have Khaled Madshaka, who is an associate professor of sociology and biophysics here at Weill Cornell University. We're very keen to hear from you as well. There'll be plenty of time for questions and comments. Please raise your hand if you have something to say. I'll acknowledge you. Speak into the microphone, press the button. Let us know your name and affiliation. And I know this is really difficult for journalists, but let's try to keep it as brief as possible because we'd like to hear from all of you, have as many comments as possible. So, Zeynep, a question for you. Big talk, certainly big money in some places being invested in science and technology in parts of the Arab world. Do you see a similar level of interest and investment in science and technology journalism?
Not until now. We didn't see any investment in this part of, in this specialty of journalism. It's still, people still don't believe in science journalism in this part of the world. They don't really care about communication or communicating their science to the audience.
Who is they?
I mean, researchers. Until now, we don't see people getting in touch with journalists. If you try to get in touch with them, it's not that easy to let them talk about their science, talk about their research, and in a language that could be understood by the audience and by the journalist itself. So we have this problem. We have a problem to get into the information in general, to know what's happening in the universities in our part of the region, because maybe in the West there's a lot of resources for information. Here we still have to dig to try to find ourselves what's happening in these universities, because nobody would go and tell you. Try to find the people who are doing research in a field that you are interested to writing about. So we have many problems. We have problems with the editors to have a space to get our stories published also, or broadcast maybe in TVs. So science journalism is still not, it's still seen by some, maybe the editors, maybe the responsible of the media in our part of the region, as a luxury. They care about politics, they care about the sports, they don't care about science. So we are still fighting in this field.
Gervais, in Africa as well, lots of talk in various development summits about the importance of science and technology. But again, do you see a similar interest in science journalism?
You still have a gap between what is said about science journalism and the practice of science journalism, what is invested in science and what people can get from science. Maybe the huge amount you can invest in science is an additional argument for science journalism. People pay for that, their taxes, their money. They want to have results. When they pay for, let's say, for schools, they want education. When they pay for hospital, they want health. If they pay for police, they want security for their life and for their properties. But they also paid for science, and science does not has not begin to bring results, to bring to the public, and science is still something hidden for scientists. Science is among scientists, and there is always a gap between the science community and the public. There is a need for science journalism to bridge this gap, but you still have difficulties to make scientists communicate with science journalists, and to have science journalists going to catch communication, cap information, cap news from scientists. Then you still have an effort to do. In Africa, the effort is very evident. There is no coverage of science in Africa. There is no money invested in, maybe in South Africa, but in Francophone, Anglophone Africa, Black Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa especially, you still have problems to invest in science communication, in science journalism especially.
Many of you in the audience are working journalists in science and health and technology. You've heard some of these problems from Zainab and from Gervais. What other issues, what other obstacles do you have in doing your job? If you could just name one that you've personally encountered. Gentleman here in the front.
Thank you very much. I think one of the main obstacle is also in the side of the journalist. The capacity is missing, really, to be able to talk about science and to have means for that. And I know all the constraints in the side of the in the side of the science, the editors are true, but also in the side of journalism, there is lack of real capacity.
Please, can you tell us your name and where you...
My name is Isaac Njifakwe. I'm from Cameroon.
Thank you very much. Gentleman, far row there. Yes.
Yeah, my name is Ibrahim Shubaith from Saudi Arabia.